boop, boop. What up? I'm doing a live stream, and I'm doing it before it's super late in the evening. Mind blown. I know. Well, it's a day off. Welcome to a Comic Tropes live stream. I'm Chris. I've been doing the Inktober challenge. If this is your first time for any reason, checking it out. Inktober is an opportunity to just draw something in ink once a day, every day, for the month of October. There are official prompts that can help you, and the prompt today was ancient. Made me think of the most ancient evil of all, represented in Black Phillip in the movie The Witch. So, doesn't look like much right now because this is pretty light pencil sketch. You can see it, but it's going to look a lot better once we start adding some ink to it. And let's see, some folks jumping into the chat. So, hello to Iron Shell, Pineapple, Atomicus, Mandela, J Muse, Sugar High, and Franco, and now Brendan. So thank you all for jumping in. Lovely to have some company here. Let's see, Sugar High says that they're also inking right now. So just gonna kick it off by going for an area that's the blackest of black, a nostril. Woo! Boop, 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 boop. All right, hello also, let's see, TARDIS Rider. I am drawing a goat. I am specifically drawing Black Phillip, who is a pet goat in the movie The Witch. Just takes place back in colonial era, like basically Plymouth. And a family that was like, had too much religious fervor was asked to leave the community, and so they just start their own farm, and to the parents' consternation, their youngest children keep trying to talk to the family goat, Black Phillip. They say, don't talk to him. And they're like, oh, but he talks to us, and nobody believes it. Yes, you should say that this drawing is not bad. Thank you, TARDIS. Chibi trying to get right in on the proceedings. A little shaky there, huh? We've been spending the day hanging out, Chibi and I, so this is the goat of Inktober streams. Thank you. Inking Satan? Maybe. Hello, Riz. Spoiler warning? Well, I'm not going to go too much further. Hello, Alex. Sounds cute. Talking animal picture. Well, not necessarily. They just, the parents just don't want the kids talking to the goat. They're like, stop it. What? There's no point. Just knock that off. They're scamps. They're scoundrels. Stop talking to that goat. Hi, Chibi. That's my cat Chibi. She's going to be apparently offering her commentary on this episode. This live stream, and she so far says meow. My best guess, she'll continue to say that. Don't think she has too many other opinions, to be honest. What's wrong with talking to a goat? Nothing necessarily. Nothing necessarily. Hello, Corporeal. Oh, Jamie says, just watched What We Do in the Shadows based on you saying how good it was on the stream. Definitely hilarious. Absolutely. That is a really funny video. And Cat Videos likes that you're talking, Chibi, so keep it up. That goat rocks the goatee. That's what I'm trying to do. Give him a nice big, like, long beard. Hello, Rabid. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate everybody that's hopped in. It's always more interesting and fun the more sort of opinions and questions that get thrown out. You never know what might provoke an interesting conversation. So I got some new pens today, so the pen situation is sorted for today. I think should be in good shape for all of that. And I think this should be fun. It might be time-consuming, but drawing fur or hair is kind of a fun thing to do with ink, and so I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Let's see. How about that Bloodsport trailer? You mean Bloodshot? Or are you talking about Bloodsport like the old Jean-Claude Van Damme movie? Hello, Ghost. Would you mind talking about your feelings on the movie? I really enjoyed the movie. Would be interested in hearing your thoughts on it. Are you talking about The Witch? The Witch was great. The Witch was a really good one. I think tomorrow I'll be going to see the director's next movie, The Lighthouse. Yeah. What makes The Witch great is, you know, it's all about, like, family dynamics and how... And also, like, I guess just the idea that, like, parents specifically are far from infallible. The parents both, like, really sort of put a lot of pressure on their kids to behave. Although now that I think of it more and more, like, the oldest son, who is not the oldest child, but the oldest son is honestly not a great person either. Kind of like all of them are a little damaged or broken in different ways, and the movie's kind of subtle about, like, you know, just explicitly just saying that, but it's a family of sort of like hypocrites and people doing things that they should definitely know better, since they're all quite religious, but you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good, even if they follow all the dogma of their religion. They're not necessarily being good people. I also thought it looked beautiful. It was such a pleasant surprise when I went to see The Witch, and the first scene is set, you know, as the family's leaving the Pilgrim Village, and they actually filmed at a real-life place called Plymouth Plantation in Plymouth, Massachusetts, that I went to many times growing up. It's a recreation of what life was like for those first pilgrims living down there. Like, and of course, it worked amazing as a set. You only see it for a short time, but it really helped add to, like, the authentic feeling for the period. Anyway, Bloodshot. Yeah, Bloodshot was well, it's not necessarily what you'd expect, first of all, just because they don't even try to make Vin Diesel look like the comic book character. They're using the premise, but they didn't even attempt to make it, like, match. So at first I was like, oh, how do I feel about that? I could understand being annoyed if you're a big fan of Bloodshot. I wouldn't say that I'm a big fan of Bloodshot. I'm aware of the character. I've read some of his stuff. I'm not necessarily a big fan. So I was like, you know, maybe this grounds it a little more, and maybe it'll still work. I don't know, though, that that's necessarily what the filmmakers were going for. But it may still work, you know? Goats have weird eyes. They've got oval irises, which just looks freaky. I guess in person I've never necessarily been as freaked out, but in a photo it just looks very strange, otherworldly. They have such different eyes than everything else. I guess they've just evolved to recognize patterns more than, like, specific, like, shapes and objects. They that's my understanding. I'm not an expert, but that's my understanding. They have really strange eyes. Thanks, Alex. I enjoy doing this channel. Hello, Hal Daddy. Let's see. How's it going? It's going very well. Thanks very much for jumping in and watching. Hello, Brian A. Let's see. I don't think it is really the right move to jump off a universe. it's hard to say. Like, here's the thing. Like, what if they are specifically trying to make a more sci-fi grounded universe than the sort of superhero movies with, like, maybe they're trying to literally avoid, like, costumes and stuff? If that's their goal, I'm not necessarily against that with, like, the Valiant universe, because it's a very, I don't know, I was talking about this a little last night. So I feel like I'm sort of repeating myself. All I can say is it still might work that way. But I'm just going to try to be patient and, like, wait and reserve judgment. It definitely wasn't what I was expecting. I hope it works. It's weird. I like Vin Diesel, but even though he's been in some movies that I really like, well, of course the Fast and Furious stuff, but, like, also, Saving Private Ryan and Pitch Black and stuff like that. Like, he's been in some good stuff that I've really enjoyed, but he's also chosen his fare of stinkers. Triple X wasn't really anything too special. And then, what was it? The Last Witch Hunter, I think, or something like that. That didn't look too good. Bloodshot looks too generic. I could understand that criticism. I don't know. Valiant has a lot of good characters. They do have some good characters. I agree. I like Archer and Armstrong. I like Exo Manowar. I haven't read tons of modern Valiant. I read Valiant back in the 90s when they were really ridiculously popular. Unless you were reading back then, it's, like, hard to remember, but they were very, very popular at the time. A lot of the characters that they were popular for at the time, they were just licensing those. So characters like Solar and Turok and Magnus Robot Fighter were, like, some of their big characters, and of course they don't have those anymore. They just had licensed them in the 90s but they, like, were all part of the Valiant comics universe. Really important characters too. Capes and spandex have a limited lifespan, but the benefit of comics is they encompass a lot more than beefy men punching each other. Yeah, the benefit of comics is, absolutely. Quantum and Woody, sure. Let's see. I know it's still in paratext phase, that's true, but what's your opinion on the Gene Scott Logan's polygamous relationship? Could definitely develop into something more than a love triangle, since it seems like Scott is now interested in not just Gene, but also Lorna Dane, his brother's girlfriend, and still, like, the White Queen, Emma Frost. So calm it down there, Scott. But the mutants may have, like, made some explicit decisions in their society. One of their 3 new rules is make more mutants, and they've got, like, some new rules for society. So this may all be okay. They may have all come to an understanding and all be okay with it, as compared to, like, sort of squabbling over relationships, which would be definitely different to explore something like that. What am I drawing today? A goat. Specifically Black Phillip. Yesterday you mentioned you like Take On Me as an animated music video and that you're a big Ninja Turtles fan. I'm guessing that you know the 1990 Turtles movie director also directed that music video. I guess I did know that. I wasn't actually explicitly thinking about it yesterday. The first Ninja Turtles movie was the only good one. Well, it was the best. I'll agree with you there. But I can enjoy parts of some of the other movies. Not the third one. That one was pretty horrible. But the second one has a little bit of fun. It's goofy. It's not great. It definitely isn't great. The animated one from, I want to say 2003, it's okay. The second live action one from, like, recent days was okay. I'm a little forgiving. I am aware that, like, this is me sort of defending some not great movies. And I think it's just that I like the characters a lot, so I'm willing to roll with it for some things that I just really enjoy. And Ninja Turtles is one of them. But I would agree that the only, like, actual good Ninja Turtles movie is that first one from, like, 1990 or whatever it was. Yeah, Terry says that they like the 2003 movie best. I can understand that. Yeah, the one where they went to Japan, like, number 3 was just bad. Just bad. Hello, James Stewart. Thanks for jumping in. I would strongly recommend the new Batman versus TMNT thing. Okay, yeah, I'm curious about that. That could definitely be fun. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Open to enjoying that. I like the Nickelodeon CGI series. Now, I haven't seen that much of it, but every time I saw an episode, I was like, I like this. I like this take on the characters. I like that they sort of they sort of how would I describe this? They used mythology from, like, past comics, past cartoons, past movies. You know, they remixed all of it, and I kind of appreciated how they used all of that. That was pretty cool. They did some good stunt casting for voices here and there. There was a lot to like. I liked the look of the CGI one because each of the turtles was a little more distinct than the either of the two previous cartoons. They had, like, some differences, like, in their body shapes and styles, so I like that. I like that they just moved them a little bit different from each other. I love the original cartoons theme song. That is one catchy song. Forget the name of the guy, but whoever the guy is that produces those, like, kind of terrible sitcoms like Two and a Half Men and Big Bang Theory, I want to say Chuck Lorre. He wrote that song. And he even does the silly voices in between when they're like, he's a radical rat. Props to him. That was a great song. Hello, Matthew Gerwitz. Let's see. Have I ever read any of IDW's Kill Shakespeare series? No, I haven't heard of that one, I don't think. Hello, Who's the Mac? Hello, Lawrence Dunn. I'll never forgive Eastman. He used his TMNT riches to buy heavy metal and turned it into a vanity project for Julie Strain. I don't think he was trying to ruin it, though, so, you know. And he stayed with working on Ninja Turtles to today, so I can forgive him. Heavy metal was awesome, though, when it was bringing us, importing some of the best of European comics. Like, I don't know where else we can easily get something like that. And as a kid and a teenager and even into, like, my early 20s, like, Heavy Metal magazine meant a lot to me. And now sometimes an issue didn't, like, have some great stories in it, but usually there was something interesting. Almost always there was something interesting in there, and I do miss what heavy metal was. I don't harbor quite as much anger towards Kevin Eastman but it was a really awesome title, and it's not really the same thing right now. It's not the same thing. And that is a shame. No, I haven't seen the Batman TMNT crossover. I haven't seen that. I've heard of it, of course, but no, I haven't seen it yet. Anyone like strongly recommend it, or not? Gonna give Black Phillip here a bunch of short little whiskers here and there just to indicate he's got short hair in some areas, longer in others. It's subtle, so I don't know how much of it is showing up, on like my kind of crummy little camera, but I think it all adds up to look a little bit more plausible. Your videos are getting lame. Oh, okay, well thanks. Don't watch them. No one's twisting your arm. It's free if you want it to be, so complaining about it seems pretty odd to me. That'd be like, like watching PBS and being like, Sesame Street, not so good. It's like, nobody's twisting your arm to watch that stuff. Troll in the house. Oh, okay. Is that a troll? Okay, so here, I'll just I'll start by putting him in a timeout. New videos are great. Okay, well, thanks. Probably just a troll. Yeah, that all makes sense. Thanks, guys. Hello, Gantris. Now, I understand that I always have room to grow with my videos. I would love to be able to focus better and improve the sound. I'm very aware that, like, my show is not perfect. All I can say is it's constantly a work in progress. I'm the only one, I don't have like a tech person or a producer or anything like that. So it's all on me, and it is a lot to do a YouTube channel by yourself. If some of you out there know that, some of you may not be aware of quite how much work it can be, but it's a lot. So it's very tricky to continue to make the improvements, but trust me that I'm aware of it, and I'm always working on it. I'm always working on it. I found out about this channel like a month or two ago, and honestly, I think the content here is solid and on point regardless of how new the video is. Yeah, well, thanks. All I can say is it's always going to evolve, and that's going to be based on me. My goal is to do the same type of thing. Analysis of comic book techniques and history. The actual presentation could evolve here and there over time. My goal is just to make it better. I do listen to people's comments and take that into account. And I also have to do what interests me, or I just burn out and not be able to continue doing the show. It's gotten to a point where the show mostly pays for itself, but it's not really anything that gives me enough to like upgrade my laptop or upgrade my microphones and stuff like that. It doesn't quite give me that like yet. It's close, but you know, I got bills to pay. I'm bringing Diggity back. Good luck with that. It's good goal. Over 70,000 people want to see your videos, so that's a good sign. That is a good sign. I'm very grateful for like where that's gone. Yeah, I think it's like my goal early in the year was to try to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Not sure if I'll be able to or not. It'll be close. It'll be close. It would just be kind of... you have to constantly set yourself goals just so that you're not just doing something. And so currently, that's just a goal. Like, you know, create content interesting enough that I can get up to 100,000 subscribers. And then, you know, once I get there, I'll have to come up with a new goal. I'm constantly creating, like, goals for myself of, like, you know, short-term goals, long-term goals, etc. So I've always got goals. I'm always trying to make the show better. That's all I can say. I'm always trying, folks. Am I still willing to do anything with Gundam? Just asking, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I don't know quite what you mean, MMA pop-off, by do anything with it. I've never seen Gundam, but I used to be really into building those models of the like Gundam, what do you call them? Like they're just the robots, the mech. I used to love that. When I moved, I actually like donated, I don't know, like 100 of them or whatever to just Goodwill, because it was just too much to take with me. But I am going to Japan in a few weeks, and I do plan on stopping by. There's sort of a huge Gundam statue in front of a huge Gundam store, you might call it. Like, it's more like a series of stores in a little museum. So anyway. My first video I watched of yours was the Hot Pepper Rob Liefeld video, and I watched that. I basically binged your whole channel. Well, thank you for doing that. Being able to take criticism is definitely a virtue, but foolish comments like that are just nonsense. Now, I understand, and I appreciate that, Jamie. That's why I put the person in a timeout. At the same time, even people that hate me, or at least, you know, seem very negative towards me, if I see the same criticism again and again, I go, well, there might be something to it. I take it all with a grain of salt. Have I done an episode on Roy Thomas? Not specifically, but I do get into quite a bit of Roy Thomas in my episode about the Kree Skrull War, and how that was like an early sort of event comic. But I talk a lot about Roy Thomas and who he is and who he was for comics. So might cover him again at some point, but definitely have quite a bit to say about him in that episode. It's a little bit about like the comics at the time, but it's also a bit about like Roy Thomas himself. So yeah. I've discovered a few hilarious Golden Age comics. I've got those sort of in my tank for that. Hold on, I'm getting a work text, so I'll look up in just a moment. Okay, sorry. Work stuff. Do I like Leo? I don't know what that is. I would like to see something on Transformers comics. I've done Transformers more than once, I think. Well, I know I definitely did Optimus Prime dying in the comics. That was a lot of fun to do. And then, of course, I did an episode on a humongous Transformers comic I made when I was 10. So... yep, people ask me a lot to look at JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It seems like a really long manga, and I've read the first volume so far, so I got a little bit more to read. You and Ed from Cartoonist Kayfabe going to get in touch with each other at Japan at all? No, we're going to miss each other by a little while. I've talked to him, and he's going to be back by the time that I go over there. So that would have been amazing. I'd love to meet Ed, and to meet him in like Japan would have been awesome. I'm sure we would have had a good time. I hope I do get to meet Ed, or maybe Ed and Jim at some point. I definitely admire what they're doing with their channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. I've been giving that one a shout out since pretty much the beginning. Hopefully, I think some of that may have helped, because I'm pretty sure a lot of my audience does watch their show. I think a lot of people have heard me mention them in either social media or here and there on like live streams, things like that. I've definitely tried to give them the rub, they might say, since those guys like doing wrestling metaphors and stuff. I'm trying to give them the rub. Of course, they don't necessarily need it. They're professionals with their own established audience. But I was here on YouTube before them, and obviously built up a little bit of an audience that's interested in comics and stuff. So I definitely try to pass that on, because I do think that we cover things a little differently. So I don't feel like our episodes aren't going to sort of repeat or duplicate each other. Anyway, yeah, I'm aware of Cutie Honey. Cutie Honey is essentially a gorgeous robot girl that, like, when she fights crime, her clothes all rip off, and she gets like remade as like an expert in something, like a race car driver, or a kung fu expert or something like that. So it's pretty bizarre, but yeah, I'm aware of Cutie Honey. If you ever want a new channel intro, I might be able to animate it. I do lots of animation. Do you? Well, hit me up somehow on social media with a link to what you do. I actually have been sort of storyboarding ideas for a revised animated intro. So that's a possibility. It's something I feel like I could do, but I just definitely don't have enough time. I'm very slow with animation because I'm not an expert with animation. It took me several months to do that, 15 seconds or so of animation I did on my fake G.I. Joe commercial, if you ever saw that. That took me quite a while. I'm thinking of hiring an editor for the show. It would be a paid position, but it is I've just been up so late, so many nights, and I really could use somebody. It's the kind of thing where I think I'd be able to pay about $100 an episode, and I think that the work time for that, for me anyway, it's between 5 to 8 hours. So I feel like $100 is probably a pretty fair wage for that. So I will probably be posting at some point in the near future, for a professional editor with a bunch of experience that could hopefully improve the show a little bit there on that end. I'd still record everything, but I could really that would really benefit me at this point. Anyway, just commenting there. So that is a position that I'm probably going to try to hire soon. Hopefully speed up the process a little, or at least take a little bit of the stress off of myself. Because here's the thing, it's going to be very hard if I do find somebody that I like. Then I'm glad to give it a try. But editing is really where I shape my show. So I say it, I want to, but it would have to be a really talented person, because it's so hard to give up that control in something that I hold so personally. The animation is pretty complicated, yeah. Hey kid, I'm a computer. Stop all the downloading. An episode on reboots, like Heroes Reborn, New 52. That's a pretty good idea. I have thought about both Heroes Reborn and New 52, but I hadn't necessarily thought of doing them like in the same episode in the context of what do reboots entail. I like that idea. Is there a schedule for the live streams when it's not October? No, not really, because my work schedule is such that I don't always know it too far in advance. Sometimes I do, but like I work different days and different hours like every week depending on the business's needs. So it's pretty tough to commit to like a specific day and then a specific time. I wish it was easier. I would love to have that consistency. It's just not currently possible. So, yeah. Good thing about an editor is your quality will increase extremely depending on who you get. Well, that's the goal. Like, then I could focus more on the behind the scenes technical aspects of improving, like the camera and the sound and stuff like that, and like I'd have a little more time basically to work on the show on other areas while somebody else handles putting the final version together. And the tough thing is, it's 5 to 8 hours. I can't always get that all in one go. So basically I end up with like, a couple late nights where I'm up to usually something like 3 in the morning at least doing the editing. That's just like the only time I can do it is like, late at night. That you've seen that how I do a bunch of live streams starting at like 10 p.m. my time. I just don't have time earlier. So it's really a big challenge to I basically sacrifice sleep every week to get an episode out, and I'm fine with that. But it would be nice to maybe get some of that back. I'd be willing to pay for it. Have I done any newspaper comic strip tropes like Garfield? Not Garfield, but Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy was a comic strip episode that I did, and I have definitely given thought to things like Popeye or other important, important comic strips. So that is something I've definitely given a lot of thought to. What pens do I use, asks Alec. It's Sakura brand Pigmas. What do you think of the argument that comic reading channels hurting the comic industry more than they will help it grow, since most people will have known most of the story? Well, that's, why in most of my episodes I very intentionally hold back on certain things. I know that like some people say, hey, that's a spoiler. Everybody's version of what a spoiler is going to vary. But I don't think movie reviewers hurt the movie industry. I think that they help people make informed decisions or appreciate a movie that they already like on another level. And that's my goal. I do think that there are channels that just explain a story. And it's like, oh, cool, somebody's just reading me the story. I can see how that would be relaxing and interesting. But I don't think that's what I do. I really, at least, that is not my goal. I specifically try to... I give a bit of background on the story for context, in case you want to, you haven't heard of it before, or you just need a refresher. So I'll summarize bits of the plot. But that's usually so that I can then bolster the arguments that I make. I don't want to just say, this is good, it has the best art, or this has a huge character twist in it, and that's what makes it good, and then not be able to back up my argument. So I'm only trying to use just enough to explain it. That's my goal. I haven't read Marauders #1, sorry, but I did pick up the latest X-Men by Jonathan Hickman today. I haven't read that either, but I did pick it up. I'm excited to read it. I'm very curious where the X-Men are going all of a sudden. I'm really into the X-Men again. Sorry, Myopic, I don't know about the adaptation of Freaks. I appreciate that you liked my Moon Knight episode, Ben. Thank you. You did well on Lock and Key, not to spoil it too much. Yeah, some people got angry because I do talk a bit about, like, the keys themselves, like the origin. And I guess that is, I mean, yeah, I guess on a technical level, that's a spoiler. I personally felt that it was important to have that context for my review. If you don't want to be spoiled at all, and you think it's something you're going to read, why are you watching a review, right? Like, if I know I'm going to go see, like, the new Star Wars movie, right? I'm not going to be watching reviews of that beforehand because I don't want to get spoiled. But if they were talking about, like, a movie from, like, the 70s, I don't know. Like, if I'm watching a movie review about the French Connection and for some reason I hadn't seen that movie, I need that context to interest me. I'm also a little annoyed at, like, sort of this sort of culture that's evolved at, like, being afraid of spoilers, because I don't know about you guys, but if I like something, I watch it more than once. It's not like if I pop on, Empire Strikes Back or Ghostbusters that I'm like, whoa, where'd that plot development come from? I've seen it before, and I can still enjoy it a second time. You enjoy things on levels. The first time it's an experience. And if you really enjoyed it, maybe the next time you're, like, trying to dig a little deeper into characterization or trying to understand sort of like references to for jokes you haven't heard before, or appreciating fight choreography or cinematography. And I'm just using movies as an example, so I could easily apply it, of course, to comics. So I'll reread comics. I've read Watchmen more than once. I've read Blankets more than once. There are some comics that I really enjoy rereading. Kraven's Last Hunt, the Spider-Man story. And I'm like, well, this has already been spoiled for me, but I still enjoy it. So I think, like, being afraid of, like, I don't want to hear anything. I'm like, then just don't even click on it. Don't even click on it. If you saw Lock and Key and you're like, I've never heard of Lock and Key, but I think I want to read it. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, Gantris. Blankets is very personal, but I think very relatable because of that sort of honesty and realness. I don't mind learning about comics and characters that I haven't heard of before. I don't either. I really like... Oh, hold on. Let me just pause. Thank you, Beta Ray Bingus. That's really, really kind of you. Thanks for drawing deliciously. The Dark Knight Returns, I've read 20 times. Exactly. So, being afraid of, like, all spoilers is a little, like, weird to me. Like, sometimes you want a little bit of context and going, like, to say, like, is this for me? And knowing a little bit of that context might be the kind of thing that gets you out and reads something new. And you're like, oh, okay, they told me about this part, but obviously they didn't tell me everything. At least that's my goal. I'll watch, I really like the channel Red Letter Media. And they do serious reviews sometimes of, like, movies that they really like. And a lot of times they also have episodes about, like, really terrible movies. Now, I have no intention of watching most of those terrible movies, so I don't care if any of that gets spoiled for me. And sometimes they do serious reviews, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting, like, a plot summation, of at least partial plot summation, but that doesn't ruin it for me. That interests me. It intrigues me. I go, oh, that might be the kind of thing that's up my alley. Okay, so, hey, Gene. Well, thanks for jumping in. It was his sled. Exactly. Some spoilers you can't avoid because they're part of our culture. What about serious reviews, satellite radio? I don't understand how that connects. But people are talking about things that they reread. Cosmic Odyssey from Jim Starlin. Hellblazer. I get it. I totally get it. Captain Citrus, NFL Super Pro, and Combo Man. The Sellout League. It sounds more like the Snack League, doesn't it? I love low-grade schlock movies. A lot of them are fun. Totally agree. A lot of what Red Letter Media, like, reviews I actually have seen, and I'm like, whoa, didn't know somebody else out there knew about, like, this terrible movie. But I guess I feel like there's, like, this culture of, like, avoiding spoilers, and I think it's very different for, like, getting a TV show that you watch already, like, having that spoiled for you is one thing. But having a little bit of context about the plot on a book, comic book, movie, I think that's totally different. Do I ever play any video games? I do. I don't have a lot of time for them, so I don't play a lot. Like compared at least to what I used to. That used to definitely be like, big leisure activity for me. These days, I would say I've cut out a lot of my leisure. Um, Not all. I'll still go to the movies and I still read comics, and I still play video games. But I've cut way back on it, so because I've devoted my time to making comic tropes. That's been my decision. Um, it's tough sometimes. Like friends will talk about a game. I'm like, that sounds amazing, but then I don't always have time for it. I do think I might. Welcome back, Franco. I do think that I've seen the Corman Fantastic Four movies terribly. I think I lost my train of thought. Let's say it may not be as large as it used to be, but I recommend playing Infamous on the PS3. My really good friend Chuck worked on Infamous Second Son, which is one of the sequels for Infamous, and it's set here in Seattle. I live in the Seattle area, and Sucker Punch Studios, that makes the Infamous games, decided to set it in their town. And what do you say? Yeah, Tobias's Fantastic Four. That was a funnier element within a not amazing season of Arrested Development. Um, so because Infamous Second Son was set here in Seattle, and it sort of has to do with superheroes, Sucker Punch wanted to put a cameo of our local real-life superhero, Phoenix Jones, in their game. Well, obviously I used to patrol as a real-life superhero with Phoenix Jones, and Chuck knew that, so Chuck approached me, I approached Phoenix, and now if you play the game Infamous Second Son, there are posters throughout the world of Infamous Second Son that say like "Free Phoenix Jones," and like the in-story story is that like Phoenix Jones has been like arrested because he's a superhero. So I like that. We got him in the game. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, good replay value. Spider-Man PS4 was so amazing. Honestly, wouldn't have asked for more from Insomniac. I also loved Spider-Man PS4. Kind of a cool new take on some of the Spider-Man story. Very fun to play. Very, very fun to play. Yeah, that's one I did play. Haven't played it in quite a while. So I haven't played, like, for instance, people are like, oh, do you play video games? And I'm like, a little. But I haven't played, like, any of the bonus content, like any of the DLC for Spider-Man. And I'm sure I'd love it because I like that game so much. But, yeah, don't have the time. That's one small sacrifice I make to making the show, is cutting out a lot of video games. Have I ever played any of the Telltale games when they were still around? I played the first season, I guess you'd call it, of Walking Dead, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. That was interesting. I think they did a really good job on story presentation. The Telltale games did, but ultimately, I feel like while you can affect how the story ends, you sort of, it's hard to like actually lose them, so you're sort of just getting the story one time, and then it doesn't necessarily have a lot of replay ability type stuff unless you are super curious how the other story paths went. A video of me playing a game while documenting your opinion on the game. If I did YouTube full time, maybe that's something I could do. Trying to look for a specific pen here. Bear with me. There it is. Is that Baphomet? Not exactly. It's very similar. This is Black Phillip from the movie The Witch. It's very, very similar in a way. What other questions are being asked? Loved the last video, wondering what the next topic will be. I tend not to just flat out like tell people what the next video is, but it is still horror related for the last week of the month. If you're a patron, you'd know what it is, just because my patrons got to vote on all the horror topics that I would cover this month. Yeah, but I don't want to just like say what it is. I like to keep it a little bit of a surprise. Next month I'm going to do another theme month, like right away. And theme months both help and hurt my channel, because people love the mainstream like Marvel and DC content, but like theme months I'm usually covering like, you know, something in another genre, or like, you know, another publisher or something. And next month is going to be crime month, so pretty shortly my patrons will be voting on exactly which topics or specific comics I will be covering for that. There's a lot of choices, so I'm pretty excited though. I like crime comics. I think that for the most part, very underrated genre, and I think it should be a lot of fun to do as a topic. And then I'll, throughout December, just sort of be covering a mix of everything. I'll probably be doing some more modern and superhero stuff for that month. Maybe something funny. So that should be good. And, of course, I'm going to film a special episode, just trying to make it a little more higher production value when I'm in Japan. I've reserved studio space at the YouTube studios. Gonna cover a big manga book for that episode, and I'm definitely excited about what I might be able to create there. I'm sure it won't be radically different than anything else I do, but I think it should be fun. Stray Bullets and Criminal are definitely options, Connor, and those are two that I would really, really love to cover. But I'm gonna leave some of it up to my my patrons to decide on. Not a Christmas theme throughout all of December, no. I might do like a Christmassy type episode, but I've done a couple in past years, and in general, I don't think like, you know, the Marvel and DC like Christmas specials are quite worthy of like a full episode or anything like that, so I might not do that. But there is like some Santa comics that I haven't ever discussed before. The idea of like comics about Santa. So that's something I'm thinking of potentially covering for the month. I'm going to need to talk to a good friend of mine who's also a journalist and a comics writer. He goes by Benito Sereno, and that guy knows a lot about Christmas history. He's really an expert, so I'm going to be reaching out to him and asking for his opinion on some of the comics that I should consider covering. If you haven't like heard of him before, though, he wrote like an Adam Eve spin-off series within the Invincible universe. He wrote a bunch of stuff. He did his own sort of supernatural character appropriate for this season, called Hector Plasm. He wrote a really funny story called Tales from the Bully Pulpit that has Edison and Roosevelt teaming up to travel through time and fight crimes. And he wrote The Tick. He wrote The Tick for like a year or so. If you haven't heard of him, look up Benito Sereno. It's also the name of a character from a Herman Melville story, but that's what he goes by, and definitely a talented writer, and he just knows a lot about Christmas, so I'm going to be talking to him and getting his input. You could cover that comic that you showed in earlier episodes of somebody stripping Santa. Consider that. That is an Ultimate Warrior comic, and for some but the thing is about that comic, it isn't really a story. It's just like one-shot panels, like, and each of them has like caption boxes of the warrior giving his philosophy. But within that comic, he, for some reason, beats up Santa and puts on his suit. What a hero. It's a weird comic. Ultimate Warrior was like legit a real life weird guy. Poor Santa, yeah. Okay, Funky Pat says, as a pro artist, I applaud your use of negative space on this illustration. Very nice. What do you do as a pro artist, Funky Pat? Do you work in comics? Something else? Tell us what you do. I don't think that Dankster just has a loaded question. I don't agree with your premise. He says, "Why do you think Disney failed Star Wars?" I don't think Disney failed Star Wars. I've really enjoyed the new prequels, and I really liked Rogue One. So I don't think that they've failed Star Wars. I'm really looking forward to The Mandalorian in less than a month. So I reject your premise. I don't think Disney failed Star Wars. And keep in mind, like before that, we had the prequels, which I would argue are not good movies. And I love Star Wars, but I don't care for those. But I still like Star Wars in general. When will Disney stop beating its children? Exactly. You can't phrase a question like that. That's not fair. Destrucity and folk, both words he made up for the comic. Yes, Care Bear, you're very aware. You're very aware. Have I seen the Dracula adaptation from the 90s with Gary Oldman? Absolutely. Francis Ford Coppola, who has been in the news in the comics world lately. I defended Martin Scorsese's comments that, like, you know, he wasn't a big fan of the Marvel movies, you know. I was like, that's fine. He doesn't have to like them, and he comes from, like, you know, a different time, etc. I was like, and I love Scorsese's movies, so, you know, I don't get angry that he doesn't get them or whatever. And I do understand his point to a degree too, in that I don't think that the Marvel movies are necessarily setting out to be much more than popular entertainment. I do think that they touch on some interesting themes. They give the actors cool stuff to do. But they're not the same, like, sort of grounded dramas that Scorsese does. Then all of a sudden Coppola comes out and he, like, just goes nuclear, and he calls them, like, you know, what, like, something along the lines of, like, atrocious or disgusting or something. I'm like, whoa, I love your movies too, Coppola, but take it down about, you're giving me a 10. I'm going to need you at, like, a 2. That is intense. Calm it down. Slow your roll. What was, you know, but anyway, I do like his Dracula movie for whatever it was. Yeah, I agree. Lord and Miller, I really wish had been able to complete Solo their way. I think it could have been a funnier movie, and then therefore stood out a little bit more as something unique. I really wish that they could have stayed on and delivered the movie that they had in mind. I really do. I like Lord and Miller's work. Not everything, but almost everything they've done. Definitely was a fan of Clone High before I knew who they were. I loved that show, Last Man on Earth. I loved the 21 Jump Street movies they made. I liked the Lego movie a lot. I will say I didn't really care for Lego Movie 2, which they worked on. That one wasn't bad. I just kind of found it boring. I was like, oh, that's too bad. That's just me, though. You know, maybe you feel differently. At least you look at the prequels, they tried to be creative. You really look at the sequels and it makes you feel cheated and disgusted. I disagree. I think that the prequels weren't that creative. I think that they, like, pretty much filled in the exact story we all could have guessed. See you, Gantris. Thanks for jumping in. So, I did not find the prequels too creative. I also found the amount of digital stuff that really kind of looks digital, kind of off-putting. I loved Yoda, but I didn't really love seeing him bounce around, like flipping in that. I didn't find that like too cool. I found it kind of awkward, and I was like, oh, maybe a full-size lightsaber for like, a tiny little guy. That doesn't make a lot of sense as a weapon to me. So I had lots of little like nitpicks. And you know what? Maybe the next guy doesn't have those same nitpicks. If they enjoyed the prequels, more power to them. That's fine. I think that the sequels, well, The Force Awakens is like, let's face it, it's a soft reboot that's like telling kind of the same story. But I did like the characters that they came up with quite a bit. And I thought that the themes that they explored in The Force Awakens was... wait, not The Force Awakens. What was the second one? The Last Jedi. I like that. A lot of people don't, I know. I really like The Force Awakens. Do I agree with a lot of what Mr. Plinkett, Red Letter Media's said about them? I agree with a lot of what they said about the prequels. I don't agree with what they say about the sequels. So we have a difference of opinion there. Darth Maul was pretty cool. Darth Maul was pretty cool, but then I didn't find the lightsaber battles between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn very good, because I was like, it was so much like sort of like ballet type ducking and dancing, and it didn't look like they were like, any of them were like necessarily going for the kill. But to be fair, emotionally, some of the Star Wars one-on-one fights work. Choreography-wise, I would argue that most of them haven't like necessarily been like mind-blowing, even the recent ones. Oh man, I love Seagulls. That song is hilarious. Bad Lip Reading Seagulls. I love that. Met Ray Park a long time ago. Cool guy. Well, that's nice. He really lucked out, I think. He got to do quite a bit in the sort of nerd world after Star Wars, because he got to be Toad in the X-Men, and he got to be Snake Eyes in G.I. Joe. I think that's a lot more than you might expect for the average sort of martial artist stuntman guy. So good for him. Swap out pens again. That throne room scene in The Last Jedi is pretty bad if you pay attention. Yeah, that's sort of what I was talking about too, Joe. It's like, on an emotional level, I like that fight. It's interesting seeing like two guys that you thought were against each other sort of team up. I like how they sort of like, take Snoke out of the way. I like that. But the actual choreography with like the guards... they're just sort of like all like spinning their saber, like just sort of waiting for their opportunity to run up and get punched. But honestly, lots of movies do that. It wasn't the greatest. Darth Maul was Snake Eyes, yes. Darth Maul was Snake Eyes and also Toad in the first X-Men movie. I'm trying to think if he's done anything else within sort of the comic book world. Nothing else leaps... Well, he was also the Headless Horseman in the Tim Burton movie... what do you call it, like Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. He played like the actual sort of like stuntman like version of the Headless Horseman, not Christopher Walken like when he's got his actual head on, but anytime he doesn't have the head, that was Ray Park. Sam Witwer's a cool guy. I actually got to interview him back in the day in person when I was doing my podcast about TV, and he was a really, really cool guy. He was really nice. He was in the pilot episode of The Walking Dead. A lot of people don't recognize him because he's under heavy makeup. He's the soldier in the tank that Rick hides inside from the zombie army, and he has to fight like a zombie inside the tank, and that's Sam Witwer. That's because Sam Witwer had worked with director Frank Darabont before on The Mist. They got along, and Darabont had an idea. He put him in there for a specific idea. He wanted to make an episode in season 2 that would show society collapsing, and it would all be from the point of view of Sam Witwer as a soldier, like just watching the breakdown of society from the point of view of the military that's trying to keep everything under control, ultimately ending with him getting bit and hiding himself in a tank so that he wouldn't like necessarily hurt anyone else. And so we were gonna like find this like cool like backstory episode one day, but when AMC and Darabont parted ways, that fell apart. It would have been a really cool idea. Yeah, I agree with you, Joe K. I do think that, like, unfortunately, Lucas just had a few too many sort of yes men that were, like, essentially afraid to challenge him on some of his ideas. Because I think Lucas has some good, big ideas, but he needs people to sort of push back, and he needs, like, extra creative people. I wish. Spielberg had pushed back a little at the overall idea of aliens in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which there are big chunks of it that I can enjoy as like an adventure, but the ultimate like story of like aliens I felt like fell a little flat. I wish I liked it more, and I wish Spielberg had like been able to stand up and be like, maybe this isn't such a great idea. Let's get another writer in here and take another pass. I thought Kate Blanchett was a good villain, but the alien thing was just sort of weird and didn't quite fit for me. Visionaries are not good detail people usually. Maybe so. That's an interesting point of view, Yard 8. Vinyl or digital? Not a huge music guy, but I do kind of like the cracks and stuff that you get with vinyl, and I think that it just does have a more sort of organic sound. I think I do prefer vinyl, even though I personally don't really have like a collection or anything. But I do like it a lot. I grew up with it, and I like it a lot. Interesting question. Thanks. Ancient aliens are all over the History Channel. Yeah. What did I think of Howard the Duck? If you're talking about the movie, didn't care for it. Doesn't quite feel like the Howard the Duck of the comics to me. If you're talking about one of the eras of the comics, I'd have probably some different opinions. I think it could have been a very, very funny movie. I am not against a Howard the Duck movie at all. I think it's a really funny, weird character. It's a cool idea to try to do it as a movie. And there are parts of the special effects, and they had a great that are good, and they had like a great cast. They assembled a good crew, but it isn't that funny. It's just sort of weird, and not weird in an interesting way, just like weird in an off-putting way. It's too bad. I liked Howard the Duck as a kid. I can understand how a kid would like it. The first Marvel film, if you think about it. Well, sort of. I mean, they've done like the Captain America serials, so those sort of count. But yeah, it kind of was the first Marvel movie. It was the first... I'm thinking it was probably the first thing that they released in theaters as like, a dedicated movie. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that they made before that. And I can't think of anything before Howard the Duck, so I guess it was probably the first one. The only thing you could like sort of put in as an argument was I think that they like released some of the like 2-hour Incredible Hulk TV show episodes like in theaters like here and there, like especially in Europe. Keep in mind that it was in an era where people didn't have necessarily even VCRs, let alone streaming or rentals. So sometimes TV 2-hour things could get released as movies. Basically, it was weird. Yeah, just TV movies exactly. I can't think of like one that was specifically designed for the movie theater. Holding out hope for Snake Eyes. Yeah, I hope it's good. I want it to be good as just a fan of G.I. Joe. I'm definitely going to see it and try to hold out hope. Will it be good? I don't know. I do like most of the cast that they've assembled. I'll tell you what would make me feel like a lot more encouraged is if they announced that Stalker and Wade Collins were in there. Because then I'd go, okay, then they're like dealing with the actual, like, a version of the origin that Larry Hama created, which is to me like the full origin of Snake Eyes. I'm a big fan of like the comics that Larry Hama created. To me, that's like sort of what's always been the main real version. So if they announced that Stalker and Wade were in it, and if they announced that like even Zartan maybe was in it, even as a small role, like for all of those, that would really encourage me and make me feel like I had complete confidence. But we'll see. Maybe they do something interesting. I think Snake Eyes makes sense to do as a spin-off to sort of reboot G.I. Joe, because he really is sort of tied to a lot of the history of the modern-day G.I. Joe team. So if it does well, then you can like sort of include a lot more characters. I wish Amazon had not dropped the Conan series. Conan could be really good. Do I have any entertaining Halloween stories? I'm not so sure that I do. Nothing's jumping to mind for like, a Halloween party or a Halloween costume that stands out as especially memorable. Definitely a season I enjoy, but yeah, do I have anything? I don't know that I've got a story per se. Huh. Does anybody have a really entertaining Halloween story of something weird happening for like, the candy that you got, or like, a costume going wrong, or weird events at a party? I wish I had a good story there, but nothing comes to mind for Halloween specifically now. Good question. I like that because I love the ability to launch into a weird story. TV Spider-Man had webs that looked like silly string. Yeah, they sure did. Do I have any favorite horror movies? Absolutely. I love horror movies. The Shining, Jaws, Evil Dead movies. Those are all like way, way up there. What came out last year that was good? There were a bunch that came out last year that were good. Hereditary was like a really good one recently. And then what was the remake of the Italian Giallo movie? Like it has like dancers at an academy in like 1980s or so Germany. Which one am I thinking of? Get Out? Suspiria. Thanks, Myopic. Suspiria was really, really solid. I had a neighbor put a razor blade in an apple that I got. Oh my god, please, Dalian, tell me that neighbor got arrested and went to jail. That is horrific. I mean, you always heard about that, but like, I've never actually encountered that. You say that happened to you specifically? Please tell me your neighbor went to jail. Yeah, Lucio Fulci, Argento, or Bava. I agree that all of those are very entertaining. Eat around the razor blade. That's just good advice. If you get an apple with a razor blade, don't just take a bite. Eat around the razor blade, for sure. No, that's really good advice. Yeah, I always heard about like razor blades in candied apples, but I always thought it was just an urban legend. I've never heard somebody claim that it actually happened to them, as compared to like, oh, it happened to a friend of mine. So that's a first for me actually hearing that. It happened when I was a kid, and my mom called the cops. I mean, is there more to it? Like, that seems like it would be huge news. I got a rock. I got a rock. Did I enjoy the Sinister movies? I think I only saw the first one. Is Sinister the one with that demon called Bagul that like shows up in your home videos? If that's it, then I saw that. I saw the first one anyway. Just got off work. Well, Sheldon, I've mostly drawn a drawing. That's primarily what you've missed. We're just having fun talking like all sorts of stuff right now. We're talking about Halloween, like and horror movies. I'm sorry, but there's only ever been one case of someone contaminating Halloween candy, and in that case, it was the kid's dad trying to get life insurance. Yeah, it definitely is an urban legend that, like, you know, oh, poisoned candy. Like, and I can understand that fear. I can understand, like, how that gets spread around, because it seems so believable that this kind of stuff could happen. But I haven't heard of many confirmed, or really any confirmed cases, so this is a first to hear this. I've seen Houseu. Yeah, that is a really wild, weird idea. Specifically asked his daughter what scared her and implemented her ideas. LS, I agree. I think I've mentioned before, Exorcist 3. Very good movie. Very good horror movie. It's a really cool, interesting one. Not actually that violent in terms of what they show you. A lot of it is left to the imagination. But definitely, like, some scary performances by, like, guys like Brad Dourif. It's the Gemini Killer. Yeah, I liked Exorcist 3 a lot. I agree. I've seen Midsommar. Midsommar was pretty good. I love the Evil Dead trilogy. Love it. Very, very fun. A horror movie about a razor blade in the apple. Probably because that's only sort of like one gag. I don't think that can support 2 hours. Yes, Epic. I did mention Hereditary as a recent favorite. Oh, The Witch. The Witch was very, very solid. Let's see. I saw some reference images for Inktober from Junji Ito's Frankenstein is horrifying. Yeah, Junji Ito's a really talented guy. Really scary, creepy, weird. Eddie the Sleepwalking Cannibal. Have not seen that. Dr. Tongue's Evil House of Pancakes. Haven't seen that. Oh, you're right, Jack. I think you're right. That the original Halloween 2 does have someone sort of in a background, like a kid coming in with like a bloody mouth to the hospital and them mentioning like that like there was like a razor blade or something. I think you're right. Like I mean, it's not really part of the story, but I'm pretty sure that you're right that was sort of a background element in that movie. That seems to be striking my like memory. I'm pretty sure you're right. At this point, I sort of feel like I've basically drawn everything that I need to, and I'm just sort of having fun doing little bits of fur that sort of I feel add to the authenticity of everything. There's not a lot else I would add to this drawing. The Wailing, yes, The Wailing. I almost forgot about that one. That is a good Korean horror movie. There was like this brief period, like just like 2 or 3 years ago, where Korea was making some good horror movies, because I also like Train to Busan. What do you do with my drawings once you finish streams? Keep them in some sort of folder? They kind of get stacked up, and then I forget about them and eventually throw them out, unless a friend wants them. I liked Let the Right One In. I didn't, I never saw the American remake, Let Me In, but I liked Let the Right One In very, very, very much. When did the Halloween franchise jump the shark? Part 5. I'll sort of give them a little bit of space on number 3, because at least they were experimenting, trying to do something different, and it's kind of entertaining in its own right. And then people were like, no, we specifically want Michael Myers. They're like, okay, number 4, kind of a reboot, kind of the same thing you've seen before, but it's okay. But part 5 was bad, and everything else Like, or most of everything else has been bad. No, I think it went jumped way off the shark before H2O, because 5 and 6 are both pretty bad. 5 and 6 are both really, really bad. I think H2O is better than 5 and 6. Boy, I'm trying to think though, like for the worst movie out of the Halloween franchise, that is some tough competition. Probably Halloween Resurrection, which has Busta Rhymes beating up Michael Myers in a burning building. That's probably the worst. But personally, I did not care at all for the Rob Zombie remakes. That felt like he was just trying to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Michael Myers. How would you classify the difference between horror and thriller? Primarily in what the intent is, in my opinion. If the intent is just to sort of like, put you sort of on edge and like, like kind of creep you out, like, with weird ideas, then that's mostly a thriller. And if it's horror, if it gives you like actual sort of scares. Is that a real thing? That's totally a real thing, Dis. Halloween Resurrection was what came after H2O. Turns out that like he's still alive, and he goes up against Busta Rhymes, who is a reality TV show producer. Yeah, The Fly definitely is a weird one. I like Cronenberg's body horror stuff. Horror usually has supernatural elements. Yeah, but not always. I mean, I think that, like the Scream movies have nothing horror about them. Halloween doesn't really have anything supernatural about it. Some of the early, like Friday the 13th didn't have anything supernatural. Alien is horror. Yep. Aliens is thriller. Maybe. Do I think Doctor Strange will really be horror? No, I don't think it'll be horror. I think it'll have a horror tinge to it. I think it'll have some like scary visuals and some, creepy ideas behind it. But is it going to actually be horror? No way. It's going to be PG-13, and you can do PG-13 horror. Like you can, like some of there's 2 or 3 good examples. But is it going to be outright horror? No way. No way. Basket case. The Gift. Are you talking about The Gift by Sam Raimi? Yeah, that's probably a little more thriller. I don't know. Whoa, Magic K says, Jeff Leb gonna exit Marvel by Thanksgiving. I heard about that last night. Yep, he's apparently been looking to move out for a while. It doesn't supposedly have anything to do with the fact that Kevin Feige recently got made, like, the chief creative officer at Marvel. I think that, like, Marvel is just trying to sort of unify some of its divisions, and I think that they basically just want to have Marvel Studios working on the TV for the most part, and there's less need for a big name like overseeing all their what would you call it? All their like TV productions and stuff. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is over, Legion is over. You'd like to see Mephisto and Black Panther 2. Well, that would definitely be out of left field, but who knows? Maybe that could work. Legion was definitely good, yeah. James is a fan of the Eternals. That's pretty cool if you've got every issue, just because, yeah, I mean, Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby for the win! He's great, He's great. The Eternals have not had tons of stories in the Marvel Universe. There was the brief series by Jack Kirby. There was a brief series by Neil Gaiman. And then there was Cersei was like on the Avengers. And that's about it. There's not a lot with the Eternals. But it is an interesting idea. We'll see if they can make it work as a movie. I'm not sure. That one's of everything Marvel's like thought of. I have more questions about the Eternals than even the Inhumans. Mephisto could be a very interesting villain to utilize in the Marvel movies. But I think you need to keep him with like the supernatural characters for the most part. Like, while it's interesting to see Mephisto taunt Daredevil sometimes in the comics or something, for instance, I would say that on the whole, Mephisto only works with some of like the cosmic or supernatural characters, like, you know, maybe Silver Surfer, but definitely you know, Doctor Strange, etc. But if they wanted to introduce him and like have, I see, like, you know, let's introduce Doctor Doom and like maybe culminate with like a movie where he and Doctor Strange go to hell to rescue Doom's mother. That's a great story to adapt. We'll see. I think it would be cool. Alright. C4. I'm going to jump up 2 to C6. Thoughts on DC's G5 initiative? I don't know the G5 initiative yet. Sorry. Triumphant Torment. You got it, James. Great story. Kazar? No, I like Kazar. I you know, I mean, he's Tarzan, but in the Marvel universe. There's a little more to him, but yeah, I like Kazar. Hi, Chibi. Are you getting hungry? Meow. Hey. I'm gonna have to take a quick pause here because it looks like my cat wants attention. She loves being the star of this thing, doesn't she? Hi, you. Oh, let's put some weight on these little bones. Oh, I love the rise of Leslie Vernon. Behind the Mask, the rise of Leslie Vernon. That's a really good. That's a really good movie. No, I don't know Gita. Shauna the She-Devil. By the way, there was a Frank Cho, Shauna the She-Devil comic. Because he's, you know, known for drawing sexy women. And at one point at a convention, I was hanging out with Kirkman, and he showed me, like, the original art that Frank Cho had drawn for that. And she's, like, naked on every page. He just drew her, like, flat out, like, losing her clothes. But then, like, the version that they released, they were like, no, you gotta put her clothes on, man. We're Marvel. We can't, like, sell this otherwise. But originally, he just drew it with her flat out naked. The Savage Land should be introduced to the MCU. Yeah, the Savage Land, the blue area of the moon, Adelon. There's so many cool hidden places to introduce in the comics. Look at this kitty. She's just ready to fall right asleep with me. Dinosaur, yeah. There's a lot of funny characters to reach. Release the Cho cut. It was going to be a Max title at first. Oh, okay, that's why she was naked. So there was an idea behind it. I didn't know that it was intended to be a Max comic. I just had seen the original art and I was like, whoa, cool. Black Phillip's real name is Charlie, and the cast and directors were terrified of him. He tore a tendon in Ralph Ineson's rib. Oh my god. That's terrifying. What an asshole goat. Marvel could go with the ultimate version of the Brotherhood of Mutants X-Men by introducing the Savage Land. Yeah, they could. An anti-hero movie would be good. I don't know about Sandman, but what about, like, I've always thought that, like, it would be fantastic to do the Thunderbolts. I think the Thunderbolts, especially now that we don't really have all the main Avengers, to fill that void, like, you know, I could totally imagine a new super team and then, like, ultimately, like, revealing that it's villains in disguise. And I'd especially love it if they actually utilized some villains from the previous movies, like, you know, like, have that be a twist at the end of the first act. I think that would be a really cool movie franchise. And then from there, you have a couple of the villains, like, literally deciding that, no, they like being heroes and they want to forget, like, you know, they want to, like, sort of earn a measure of redemption. I think that, like, that would be a good movie franchise. Did I use reference for this? I looked at real photos of goats. I didn't look at, like, the specific goat from, what do you call it, The Witch, but I did look at real goats, absolutely, just to make sure that I was illustrating anatomy right. Mostly for when you saw me turn on the stream, I sort of have the outlines of what I was going to do, but, like, you know, I was making the decisions on where to put the shadow and the stuff like that, because that's what this is about for me. Inktober is about deciding how to ink, like, what kind of techniques I'm going to use and, like, where I'm going to put the dark colors, etc., and what kind of feathering techniques I want to use. Do you think Marvel Studios could do the Fantastic Four justice? No question. No question. I think that like, the Fantastic Four should be a relatively light. Big stakes, but relatively light. I think it's a family drama of explorers. So, you know, like, have them go to the negative zone. We haven't seen that yet. Have them maybe go to Adelan. I don't even care if they reboot, like, you know, the Inhumans. Like, because I don't think anyone would care. But, I don't know. Have them go to the blue area of the moon, etc. Like, you know, have them go to all these, like, secret exotic locations within the world of Marvel. And then, like, you know, Doctor Doom could be there. But I think Doctor Doom should be built up as a threat for, like, everyone, like, culminating in some sort of, like, you know, big crossover type movie. Or maybe just a Fantastic Four movie, like, that's done like Captain America Civil War, where they use a bunch of the superheroes within a Fantastic Four movie. That's fine too. But yeah, I think that there's a lot to do. I mean, you've got Galactus and the Silver Surfer, you've got potentially, like, Kang the Conqueror, you've got the Skrulls, you've got, like, and I know they've introduced some of that, but, like, Fantastic Four have some really great villains. That's what they have. They have some really great enemies. Characters like Annihilus. Let's introduce that and go from there. I don't know. Let's build up to the Annihilation wave, maybe. That would be a cool one. Mole Man? Why not? I would love to see the leader too. Yeah, how about the leader in a Thunderbolts movie or something? I don't know. Squirrel Girl should be a sitcom. Squirrel Girl would be a good idea for a sitcom. I won't argue with you there. That's a cool idea. Okay, so that's 6. Let's go with yeah. Four Bushman sitcom. There you go. Now we're digging deep. Now we're digging deep. You know what would be a good sitcom? Set it in the Marvel Universe. Let's get Damage Control, man. Damage Control would be great. They could do it as a comedy movie, but Damage Control would be awesome. Which old tropes video would you say that you drank the most in? Oh. I think that recent one I did for Spider-Man Zodiac. I did a lot of shots in that one. Next Wave? I'd love a Next Wave adaptation. I'd love that. I'll do an episode someday about Stuart Immonen, and I got to talk about his work on Next Wave, because that was pretty spectacular stuff. I love Stuart Immonen. I wish, I don't know, I've heard rumors that he's coming back to do something, that he hasn't, like, fully retired after all. We'll see. I would like that. Chibi, you okay? She's got an upset tummy. Poor kiddo. Okay, it wasn't that bad a deal at all. She's fine. Is Hulu gonna renew Runaways? I don't know, maybe. Great Lakes, that's another pretty funny idea. Damage Control was going to be a show, but it never got picked up. Well, maybe the Marvel Studios should do it. I think that that would be a great show. I did read the new 52 Animal Man. I liked that was like one of my first times getting exposed to the writing of Jeff Lemire, and I read it because my buddy Travel Foreman was the initial artist on it, and I loved what he was doing with that. So yeah, I definitely read that. It was great. Hey, Chibi. Yeah. Just saying hi. What other questions we got? Let's see. Rot World was awesome. Totally agree. I bought season 1 of Doom Patrol on Blu-ray. Oh, I didn't realize it was out yet. The real question should be, is your cat's insulin starting to help? I think so. She seems to be meowing a little bit less. I think she's putting on a little bit more weight. She's still a skinny little thing, but she kind of always has been. I think she's adding a little more weight. She seems to have a little more pep in her step. It's very subtle, though, so I hope I'm right. You know, she's over 15 years old now, so she's not a young kitty anymore. And she's gone through some tough stuff, like health-wise, but you know, I'm spending the money and trying to give her the care that she needs. Trying to watch her. Gets stressful having a pet in their older years. You know? Yeah. But, I like her. She's fun. Wow. Lady cat of a certain age. Yep. Ever listen to the Weird Al parody of American Pie? Yeah, I did. That was funny. Every once in a while, I get like nostalgic for Weird Al, and I'll like start listening to a bunch of his stuff. My buddy Mark Englert recently was hired by, and he's a huge Weird Al fan, but he was recently hired to do one of Weird Al's tour posters. I thought he did an amazing job. Oh yeah? It's not time to eat yet. Amish Paradise is pretty funny. Yeah. Renee Montoya and Vic Sage. Yep, they're interesting in their version of the question. I have not read the Martian Manhunter maxi series. No. Wow, thank you, Pineapple Pizza Fan. The Pineappling sent in a super chat. Thank you very much. That's sincerely appreciated. That means a lot to me. It really helps. It's just it's awesome. Thank you. Gonna work on just adding a bunch of different grays in here and trying to give this thing overall some definition. Let's see where it goes. Al is a legit dude too. Incredibly genuine and grateful to his fans. Being hilarious is just a bonus. Who doesn't like Weird Al? Like, even if you don't like love his music or something, like, you have to like him as a person. He's funny and he's kind. How did you come up with the idea of reviews on comic book tropes? I just decided I was going to do a show talking about comic books, like sort of like analyzing them, like for their techniques. And the first one I decided would be kind of fun and easy was like talking about Chris Claremont. That was the first episode I did. Didn't have an idea for the title of the YouTube show at the time. When I finished it, I was like, well, I'm talking about his personal tropes. Maybe I'll just call it comic tropes. And one of my friends wanted me to call it Gin and Comics, and and I said I don't want to feel obligated to drink every episode. That was sort of like a one-time gag that I might feel like doing again, but I don't want to feel obligated to drink every episode. So while Gin and Comics sort of sounds like gin and tonic, and it does roll off the tongue, I just didn't want to feel obligated. Although if I went that way, which I briefly thought about, I would have basically had a full bar on my set, and I would have just like mixed myself drinks. Instead, I sort of revisited that idea. If you've ever watched my Halloween episode, I think it was 2 years ago, I covered EC horror comics, specifically things like Tales from the Crypt and that, and I did mix up some Halloween drinks in that episode, and I created like a more elaborate sort of set for just that one episode. Talk about your Skunk Ape days. Skunk Ape was never really intended to be like the name of my channel. It was just like when I created a YouTube account years and years ago, just to have one so that I could like potentially comment on things. I named it Skunk Ape. It was just a word that always amused me. So originally Comic Tropes was like the name of the show, and the name of the channel it said Skunk Ape. But over time I just decided, like, mostly what people were like Googling or like looking for was Comic Tropes, so I renamed it. Simple as that. Not much to that history, I guess. Those drinking tropes were funny. It was fun. Did I have any other YouTube ideas before Comic Tropes? Nope, not really. Had never really considered being a YouTuber or anything. I had gotten laid off from a job that I really liked, and I decided that while I was engaging in my job search, I was going to have some time to fill, and I would give myself a project that I enjoyed, and I was like, I love comics, I love talking about comics, so I decided I'd just create a YouTube channel about comics. That was my only idea. If I ever did like anything else, it would probably be like something like movie review, because I also really love movies and talking about that. Never really, for instance, considered having a gaming channel. Even though I do like video games and stuff, I've never really like considered that as an idea. I don't know what I do for like a vlog. I mean, I guess I do, but you know, I don't know that it would be that exciting or interesting to people, so don't really have any other ideas. No, I always wanted to do very specifically a comic book channel. That was my only idea. And just decided I'd commit to a regular schedule to also help me. And so that's why I just did it weekly. I think the first several episodes were like actually faster than weekly because I didn't quite know what my schedule would become. But yeah, the first several episodes are... and then I just sort of settled into a weekly schedule. Seems to work for me. Do you have any older videos you would go back and fix or change something you didn't like? Yeah, I really can't watch my older stuff. I don't really care for it too much. My episode about Preacher, I'm not really... I don't know. I don't like feel bad about the opinions I espouse, but I also don't think it's structured very well. I don't think it's a very good episode. And there's probably some others that I'm just honestly like sort of forgetting at this point. People think the Superman would beat Flash in a race. That feels like you're taking away Flash's only thing if you're going to say that Superman is also faster than the Flash. You're like, hey Flash, you're fast. You're actually still not the fastest though. It's like, geez, let him have something. If you're going to like make a superhero that's fast and then you're going to tell us that like he's not the fastest, at least against other superheroes, I don't mind if there's a faster supervillain. That's a conflict. That's interesting. But if you're gonna tell me that like Superman is also faster than the Flash, I'm like, well, what's the point? Just tell your speed stories with Superman if he's so fast. Flash knows how to cut angles better than Superman, maybe. I've done lots of digital art, Smokey. I love drawing digitally. Oh, Chibi's popping in. She just jumped on me. I love working digitally. I just also like having a physical result for my work. So I also tend to like how I can like sort of I don't know, like when you draw with pencil and paper, you do like make little mistakes, but like they end up sort of working for you. Oh wow, cool! Thank you so much, Samuel Fonseca. Thank you for that super chat. That's amazing. Thank you, man. That's so cool. She'd be like just wants to jump in front of the camera. I don't think she knows it's a camera, but that's like where she wants to be right now. She's trying to jump in front of... You have like become the little star of my show because you keep wanting to be on camera and you keep talking. You are such a weirdo. Okay, now hold on. She's walking all over the keyboard. That's not good. Yep, I'm gonna have to get you out of the way, baby. Thank you. Cats. The whole thing with the Speed Force is it sometimes gets watered down, like Flash getting hit with an airplane or Zoom getting stabbed by Batman. Oh, yeah, I guess so. GB is the best co-host. She's pretty amusing. She's pretty funny, like just forcing her way into this show constantly. Oh, wow. Bigfoot's real and he was acting like a bear? That makes a lot of sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense. I hear you meowing. I don't know what you want. You should make a comic tropes where the subplot is that Infotron is trying to dispose of Chibi as a co-star. Let's say Bigfoot is actually the real-life Shaggy Man. That makes sense. That makes sense. The cat wants attention. Always. Oh, always. And that's okay. I love to give her attention. What you want, goofball? She's my little co-host. Turns out that Milo is controlling Infotron with levers. Yeah. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Yeah, Bigfoot was a robot in that episode of whatchamacallit, what was it? $6 Million Man. Whoa, Magic K with a super chat now. How about a Neil Gaiman Book of Magic episode? Not against that idea. I would like to revisit Neil Gaiman. I did one episode about some of his techniques in an episode. I decided to cover his Marvel series. What was it called? 1408? Something like that. It's not coming to me off the top of my head. But I would like to revisit. There's more I could say about Mr. Neil Gaiman. I'm going to feed you in just a little bit. What time is it? Hold on, I'm accessing my phone. 16:02. Yeah, that makes more sense. Oh, it is food time. That's why she's starting to meow. She knows her schedule for getting fed. She's pretty good about that. Yeah. I'll feed you in a moment, little one. Yeah. Legion of Superheroes, The Great Darkness Saga. I did read that, but I read it like back in like the 80s or something, so I don't really remember it super well. But I all I can say is I remember it being like sort of the best story about Legion of Superheroes. That's worth a revisit. That is worth a revisit. That might be something that should be an episode. I'll have to give that some thought. Wow, thank you. Last Son of Krypton kicks in a super chat. Thank you, everybody. This is really generous. Chibi is a cutie chatting up a storm. She amuses me. Do I have a favorite collectible? You know what? I guess I really like my Hot Toys Iron Man. That was the first Hot Toys that I ever got, and sort of sent me down that like rabbit hole of collecting Marvel Cinematic Universe Hot Toys figures, and I just like how sort of real and convincing it looks. more so than even the others, because it's metal, like as compared to being like, a person with like skin and hair and stuff like that. That's tough to convey sometimes. Mego Batman, yeah, Migos are cool. The Legion appeared briefly on Smallville. They did. Chibi's trying to warn me of Black Phillip's influence. Oh my, she's hungry. Trust me, she's just hungry. And now Milo's here, so it's definitely hunger, because he never misses a meal. Do you, buddy? You guys all know, like, Chibi, but, like, trust me, Milo, he just doesn't meow as much, but he's, like, always here. He's like, running right under my feet right now. Hi. I will be with you shortly. We're wrapping up this drawing, and then you'll have my full and undivided attention. Okay, Cat? Anyway, I think that basically is going to do it for tonight. I think I had a really good time drawing this one, actually. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. And thank you for the super chats. That was really appreciated. That was really kind of everybody. Let's see, before I go, let's see what the prompt for tomorrow is. Can you double jump? Yeah, I jump, and sometimes when I'm in the air, I jump a second time. So yeah, I double jump. Alright, looking at the Inktober prompt list, tomorrow's word is dizzy. Dizzy is the prompt. Don't know what that necessarily implies, but it's an interesting prompt. I like that it's different. I'll have to give that some very serious thought, but mostly I'll be giving that thought tomorrow. Don't plan ahead for these. Just let them go where they may. Dizzy, yeah, I'm trying to think, like, because I've been sort of trying to keep it all horror movies, so I'm not sure, like, what exactly makes people dizzy, but definitely something I'll give some thought to. Just putting back my Copics that we were using tonight. Bunch of cool grays. That was a good present. My dad got me this, of all people, so appreciate the support, Dad. Whoa, Magic K, will I do a Doomsday Clock episode? Well, it does seem to be something a lot of people are asking me to do. So what I'm going to do, I think, is wait until it's complete, and I can have some perspective on the whole thing. I don't want to really talk about it before it's finished. I haven't read it yet. I don't really want to support it monthly. Neil Gaiman. Alan Moore did not intend for that to, like, be a property that DC would, keep doing. He intended that to be creator owned and that he would keep it. So, things change, and that's okay, but I don't want to support it, basically. But when it's done, there will be issues that the stores have already ordered. There will be issues that they already ordered, so I'm not, like, supporting its print run per se, but I would still be able to support a comic book store. So if that makes sense. So I'm going to wait until it's finished. I'll read it, and then I can probably do an opinion. So I know it's been dealing with some delays, so that might be a little while. But I think that sometime in 2020 I probably will talk about Doomsday Clock. I do also want to just in general do an episode about Jeff Johns. I think it's an important creator that I need to talk about. So anyway, I'm going to take off for now, folks. Got to feed the cats, obviously. Got to feed myself. and got to work on the next comic tropes. So got a bunch of stuff to do, but I appreciate everybody joining me. I'm going to see you tomorrow, probably in the afternoon again. Until then, keep reading comics. Bye-bye. Wait, I have to pause just because Dis Manibus Sacrum, thank you for the super chat. You interrupted me just as I was saying goodbye. I'm very grateful, though. I will always at least say thank you. I want to acknowledge that. That's important to me. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That was very, very generous of you. So, thank you all. Bye.